What's up YouTube, and welcome back to Homebrew Subaru. In this episode I'm going to slap some brakes onto this Impreza. So what's up everyone? I was going to make this into a how-to video, like how-to front and rear brakes, but I've done a number of brake videos and honestly I just want to slap the brakes on this thing and get it done. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead. I've got front pads rotors, rear pads rotors, and I'm just going to put them all on. Something I've noticed before starting is, well, maybe a week ago, is the brake fluid was empty, like the reservoir was empty, which turned the brake light on the dash, and that's what made me realize. So I topped it up, and stepping on the brake pedal it feels fine, and I haven't lost any brake fluid. So I don't know if there is a small leak on a caliper somewhere, or if the pads have all just gotten so low that it drained the reservoir down. But I won't know until I, peel the wheels off and start having a look. The car's still up on the stands in the front. I'm gonna do the fronts first, and then I may have to actually move the car because the right rear is a little bit tight to be working on, and I've got lots of room on this side, so maybe I'll back the car out and back it back in. I'm not 100% sure yet. See what we find, and I'll show you what happens, and if I find anything crazy, and if I don't, then I'll just show you the end results. So it looks like the saga begins. I've taken the caliper off, I've got the pads off. I ended up cracking the bleeder to try and get some fluid to come out so it doesn't pour out of the master cylinder. And I'm going to take off this caliper bracket, and that bolt just snapped off like nothing. This top bolt can be a nightmare if you don't handle it properly. It will round off very easily if it's seized in place. And this strut bolt actually keeps you from getting straight on there or even on it at an angle. So I might take this out just so I don't get myself into a further nightmare. But it looks like I at least need one caliper at this point, unless I can turn the broken bolt out of this bracket, which is still possible. So I've got the bracket off. I was able to get the top bolt out. The only thing I'm using is MAP gas, which is hotter than propane. Definitely not close to being as hot as oxyacetylene, so you got to keep that in mind when you're using this. You have to apply it for a few minutes for it to do anything, or it just won't even work at all. And I just heated up on this corner and was able to impact this thing out. I have to try and reuse this bracket. I'm going to attempt to get this bolt out. I don't want to have to buy a caliper. If I need to, I will. So the idea here is I'm going to use the same kind of method. I'm going to just heat up this corner as best I can for a few minutes. Before doing that, I'll take the ball peen and just kind of chip away any of the loose rust that might be there so the heat can apply a little better. And I'll do that outside the vise, so all of the heat can be best applied directly to the bracket. Once I have it hot enough, then I'm going to fasten the bolt in the vise and try and turn the bracket loose from the bolt. It's not going to be easy. It might not work, but this is the best method to do it at home with what I have. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of the times it just takes something like this for someone to realize that they aren't actually a mechanic. Yeah, because if someone told you this is all going to be fun and games, they straight up lied to you, okay? And to be honest, I really don't mean to be putting down anyone's ability, because, a lot of people could manage to do something like this, but they're on top of, dealing with something like this. It's something, you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst. So I have these bolts on hand, and I can literally get this together at home without leaving here. You will probably notice going back together that the steering knuckle hole that the bracket bolt passes through does not want to pass through anymore, because the amount of rust buildup or the missing threads from the old bolt that are left in there. Make sure to have a round file. It can be a cheap one, it doesn't matter. And just get rid of all of that loose material inside. And keep doing it until that bolt passes through freely. And here's before and after. So I've got everything back together. I hope the other side isn't the same way. And now I'm really starting to wonder about what the rear's gonna do. I did start to run into the same problems on the rear bottom caliper bolt. I had to hammer the end of it a little bit just to get the socket to sit on there nice and tight. And then I had to heat the bracket to get it to crack loose. The caliper bracket is so hard on there that it is like welded with rust. So, I mean, I know I'm using a little hammer. It is starting to move, but you can see how seized this thing is on there. Absolutely nothing left of the rear pads. The lining was actually cracked off of it, and it's been jammed down in there trying to brake the car. And I don't know if the brakes have ever been done or it was just pad slapped, but it'll be a lot better with some new rotors and new pads on those rotors so they don't tear up like these ones did. Before and after. So I've gotten to the right rear wheel and there's some obvious signs of brake fluid leakage. The paint on the back of the pad is just ballooned right off of there. And looking at the caliper, it looked a little moist up around the fitting at first because the boot was pretty dry, but as I get pulling it pretty far back, it's pissing. So I'm gonna have to get a caliper in the morning because parts are not open today, and I'm gonna still go ahead and try and get this bracket off so I'm ready to go back together in the morning. I don't want to be spending too much time on this tomorrow. So I've already been up and out to the parts store this morning. I got the caliper and it is installed. I've gone ahead and thrown on the winter wheels that I'll be using again this year. So I've had these winter wheels for 10 years and these tires have lasted me that long. You can see I don't do a lot of winter driving, and I've had these wheel assemblies have now been on 4 cars that I've owned. And I have the wheels on this side already. The brakes are all finished. That caliper is bled and the pedal feels really good. All I'm doing currently is draining the transmission. I decided to go ahead and do a transmission service. So that is just about finished draining underneath there. I'm going to top up the fluid with some fresh, I don't have it out here, Valvoline Max Life. And I think that would be some good maintenance to finish this thing. So realistically, this job turned out pretty decent for this video. It goes to show the unforeseen things that can happen. It's a little difficult to look at a bolt and determine if it's going to break or not. So those kind of things just kind of happen, and there being no Subaru dealer in town and no one that can supply decent hardware, I was only fortunate to have those bolts here. But had I inspected the brakes beforehand, I might have looked at them and said, well, maybe I should get some bolts. Definitely the caliper. I could have caught the caliper before, you know, noticed it leaking, wondered why the brake fluid was low and went looking for it. Luckily there's a caliper in town, but if I had it yesterday, I would have finished this thing yesterday at the same time. So it's one of those things when you take your vehicle in to get, you know, a job done with a mechanic, and he calls you back and he's like, you need this and this and this. It's literally because, you know, you probably didn't have your car inspected. Just saying. To finish off this video, all I'm going to do is add the transmission fluid. I'm pretty sure, you know, synthetic is okay for the 4EAT, but I'm not 100% sure. It should be fine. I am going to go get insurance for the car. I'm going to go give it a wash and pull it back in so the water doesn't get all icy and crispy on it. Start cleaning it up because I plan on using it starting this next week. And I think the next video, I'm actually going to probably end up doing an auto vlog because I haven't done one for a long time, and we can talk about some of the plans that I have for the winter. So if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.